Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you for your patience as we've worked through this process. So we are now going to have a presentation from our CAO, Mr. Edney, where then we'll have some questions and some approvals of the budgets. So, Mr. Edney.
All right. Thank you, Mayor and Council. We're back again here. After some long days of deliberation, I think Council's come to a point where you're happy with the budget. Hopefully to approve here this afternoon. I'll walk through a few slides with some requested motions and see if there's any debate or discussion on what's being presented here. So real quickly, on the municipal side, administration is going to be looking for three separate motions, one to approve the operating budget, one to approve the capital budget, and one to accept the 2026 to 2035 capital forecast as presented. So some key factors, we talked about this when I did the original presentation. We've been talking about it throughout the process. One key assumption in here is we're assuming 7% growth to the property tax base. We're not assuming any change to existing property assessments. So where there was a big jump in assessment values last year, we're expecting them to be relatively stable this year with no net change. This therefore assumes no increase or change to the property tax mill rate. So from a municipal perspective, we're looking at the only way we're getting increased tax revenue is from the growth in the community, the new houses, the new commercial buildings contributing to that. We're expecting any given household to pay the same amount of property tax as they did in 2025. However, there's always the education tax. This is beyond the municipality's control. This is something that is assessed by the province. We are expecting a 10% increase to our overall requisition. How that impacts each individual house, again, we'll know that once we get our final assessment values in the spring. There's been some questions through the process of where did 10% come from. That was, I guess, forecast by the province last year when they talked about how they were going to shift some of the funding for education back onto the taxpayers and their targets that they were shooting for. So 10%, I think, is what all the municipalities are using. One big change you'll see is an increase of about $3.4 million. This is for the golf course. Now that we own it, we have to budget for the revenue and the expenses, as I've discussed before many times. Right now, it's being run by the existing third-party management group, not the same one as in September, but the one as of right now. And it's a net zero impact on our budget. All the revenue coming in is matched by an expense going out. One thing that has changed from the preliminary presentation of the budget here is we now are looking at a small withdrawal from the restricted reserves. Again, in this process, and I talked about it a bit this morning, this is an interim budget. We are making guesses at our assessment base. We're making guesses at our provincial funding. We'll get all that information in the next couple months. When we come back to council in April or May for final budget, we'll have those numbers firmed up. We do try to be a little bit conservative and under budget on the revenue side. So the expectation would be that as we get those numbers in, this projected deficit, albeit small, will be removed at that point. Again, this is just a practice to balance the budget at this point. The MGA does not let a city forecast a deficit, so we'll talk about that a little more when I get to that slide.
One might call it an educated forecast as opposed to a guess.
An educated forecast.
Educated forecast as to what we're looking at.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Dean. So real quickly, I've hit on most of these. We're looking at an interim operating budget of just under $69 million. 2025's approved budget was $61.5 million. We're seeing a change in the education tax requisition. Again, municipal tax going from 26.8 to 28.6. Again, driven by growth only, no changes to assessment or mill rate. About $3.4 million of that's coming from the golf course. We've seen an increase in building permits, we're assuming, but a decrease in subdivision requests. So why that's important, not necessarily for 2026, but as we get into next year's budget cycle and start talking beyond, as subdivisions slow down, then building, tends to follow a year or two later as we see that slow down. So that's something we'll have to be aware of administratively as we're building future budgets. And then one of our big line items was a big decrease in revenue fines from the RCMP. Again, I think that was more of a budgeting issue last year than necessarily a change this year that just needed to be addressed and adapted. On the expenses side, again, education tax I've already talked about. On contracted and general services, we're up about 3.3 million. Again, 3 million of that is from the golf course. It's offset by revenue. We have a bit of an increase to the RCMP contract. I call it a net RCMP contract because there is a portion from the fines that gets offset. It is about 500,000 for 2 more members, but it gets knocked down by the fine revenue. So, and we heard a motion from council earlier to increase the library funding by $100,000 from 2025 to $600,000 for 2026. Our biggest driver of expenses in the city, of course, is personnel. We talked about this last year. It's an increase of just under $2.9 million this year. This includes cost of living adjustments per our union contracts. It includes now a full year. So this is something we talked about. We talked about it in camera, but it's not a confidential thing. Of course, as we approve new positions for this year, we aren't having all those positions in place by January 1st. So we proportionally budget about 75% of the value of all of those positions for the particular year, just so we're not having an artificial surplus at the end of the year. So what happens, of course, we added 13 positions in 2025. We now have a full year of those in 2026. And then we are asking for 19 new positions in 2026. Again, assuming most of these positions don't start until April or later in the year. So the updated municipal operating budget is in front of us on this page. Again, I think I've talked about most of these main drivers. The big increase, of course, in user fees and charges is that revenue from the golf course of about 3.5 million. Otherwise, it's just simply some changes in building permits and some of our subdivision fees. So we have $68.483 million of revenue expected. We're anticipating $68.8 million of expenditures. Again, the 2 biggest drivers of that are adding the golf course in. Again, that was offset in the revenue item. And then about $2.9 million in the personnel budget. And then the other big item on this page, of course, is the requisitions. That's the provincial education tax. Again, it's in and out on the revenue side. So forecasting from operations, a small expense surplus of about $335,000. Again, in this process, while we await new assessment numbers, we await new grant numbers, we refine these numbers through to final budget, there's a line item transfer from reserve of $335,670 to offset that so that we end up with a balanced budget as the MGA requires. Again, we're not going to take that money from reserve. If we ever had to, we'll do that on December 30th of the year once we've gone through all our variants. And I fully anticipate and expect, if nothing were to change on our assessment, i.e. if growth is not 8% instead of 7%, administration will work to find savings throughout the year on the expense side to offset that so we do not have to transfer anything from reserves. Looking at the capital budget update, it's changed a little bit from the original 10-year forecast. As council went through this process, we heard about this over the last couple of days. Originally, we presented just over $18 million of budget. Now we're looking at about $14.5 million. There's still one project in here we'll get to that we need to bring back some more information from council, but it is a placeholder in this budget at this point. This is all offset by separate funding sources. So back here, we have a 10-year forecasted budget of about $242 million. We also have a line 2 funding for $242 million. Focusing on 2026, most of our funding is going to be coming from the provincial LGFF grants and the federal community building grants. Again, Mark has talked about this a little bit. We do have some carryover in both of those grant streams. That's why it's a little bit higher in the early years than the future years, as we hope to use up that funding from the province. There's also some projects covered by the offsite levies on the transportation side. So no reserves, no debentures needed in 2026 right now to fund the capital projects. Looking closely, I apologize. I was doing this in a rush. We'll have more information publicly, so you might be able to see this a little better. But this is just a listing of all of the projects that council approved through here. We've talked a little bit about why we do the dollar signs versus the actual dollar figures. Council has, of course, seen all of the dollar figures and approved the dollar amounts. This is just rolling them up, in this case, by department, just so we're aware, and by funding source. So again, $1 signs up to $100,000. And then if we're over 5 million, you get $4 signs, just to give a rough estimate. As the year goes through, we'll provide continuous updates on the capital budget, where we'll disclose what the budget number was, and then subsequently what the procurement value was, and then the total amount spent. Did you have a question, Mayor Dean?
Just a comment. I just want to clarify the one thing you said. Council has seen all the numbers. We haven't yet approved them. That's part of the process that we're doing right now.
Correct.
Correct.
Did I say approved?
Correct.
My fault.
Yeah, I just wanted to correct that. So just very quickly, yes, we've seen all of them. Councillors could still have opportunity if they had a second thought on any of this, if they wanted to bring it forward during this process, that they could do that. But the capital budget is the process of approving these numbers is exactly what we're in the middle of now. Correct? Just for clarity for people.
Exactly.
Great, thank you.
Yep. So again, here's first page of particular items that council went through and discussed, again, broken down by department versus this original page is by type of project. This just gives a little more visibility by department as to who's doing which different projects. So I won't spend a bunch of time on here. I know council, you've got these again, as Mayor Dean mentioned. If there's something you'd like to remove off, this is the time to do it. If there's something you'd like to add on at this point, you can do that as well. So again, just getting through these 4 pages, $14.6 million of projects forecasted, and then $14.6 million allocated to these funding sources. So that's the municipal budget. Do we maybe want to talk municipal? Do you want to make those motions now? Have any debate on the municipal side before we go into the utility?
Yeah, I think it would be great for us to do those first and then do the utility as a separate matter. Okay. Just before calling on any questions from council, I just have a quick question. I was wondering if you can just add a little more color, please, to the 19 positions for staffing, because that sounds like a lot if I was outside the organization. So I was just wondering if maybe you could speak to the idea of how it's across several different departments, the idea that as we've grown, we've recognized some tensions with growth. I know that in your original presentation, which was done, it seems like 4 years ago, but during when we first started this process about almost a month ago now, actually. So when we first did that 3 weeks ago, you showed that graph of the staffing levels that we had, the level of service, or just approving permits and those sorts of things. So I'm just wondering if you could just, for the public, if you could just speak a little bit to the reasonings behind that and how just the idea that across the different departments.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mayor Dean. I think you did a good job of introducing that as well and hit a lot of the good points. So maybe I could turn it back over to you. No, I'm just just kidding on that. No, you hit on something important. You're right. 19 positions does seem like a lot of positions to someone on the outside. We have roughly 204 staff members, full-time equivalents. That goes over 250 when you start to include the seasonal staff. So it is a significant growth in the organization. To your point, I don't have the org chart here to share, but as council saw earlier today, it's really split across all of the different departments. Last year, we spent a lot of effort focusing on emergency services with firefighters and CPOs and RCMP. This is our year we're trying to catch up administratively. So there's 2 angles to this. As you mentioned, I talked in the original opening budget. We've seen tremendous growth in this community, and you know, nothing is a direct correlation to population, but population is a good correlation to all sorts of things. The more people there are, the more houses we have. The more houses there are, the more utility accounts, the more tax rolls to deal with, the more questions we get at City Hall, the more roads to sweep, the more roads to clean, the more parks to to look after the bigger projects we start to look at. This council, of course, it's not in 2026 budget because we're still working on it, but pretty quickly it's going to come a brand new recreation center, a fire hall, a library. You know, this year you purchased a golf course, you purchased the existing rec center lands. That all takes staff capacity to look at some of these things. You know, one of my, I think, key introductions to it, I showed a graph just showing where we stand relative to our peers from a per capita staffing perspective. And that wasn't really to say we're better, we're worse, we're doing anything different. Every municipality has different services we provide. It was more to show to the public, we're not asking for something to put us at the high end, put us out on top. We just want to catch up. If you remember the graph, you alluded to it, Mayor Dean, I talked about, and we heard about it this morning, we're doing 300% more building inspections, building permits, subdivision applications than we were 5 years ago. We do not have 3 times as many people. We're not even asking for 3 times as many people. We're just asking for somewhere along these lines to start catching up. With the new executive team in place, we're spending a lot of effort looking at efficiencies as well. So again, we don't want to get too far out asking for too many people before we've evaluated how our process is and can we find efficiencies in those. We're looking at digitization of some of these processes. Can we incorporate AI into some of the, you know, the menial tasks that take up a lot of time to free up people to go do the important things. So I think you've had a good hit. It's a big jump, but it is spread across nearly every department at this point. So really would appreciate council support. I think these are the things that you see public facing. You see the grass get mowed, you get a timely response on your phone call, you get a good turnaround on your building permit, you get proper information when you call in and talk about your tax bill. So not saying we're not doing that. I think we have an excellent staff that does all that well, but they need a little bit of help in each of these departments to catch up with our growth and especially where we see it going over the next few years.
Great, thank you. So we'll start, I guess, with the municipal operating budget. Council, do you have any questions for our CAO with regards to the municipal operating budget? Seeing none, I think then we are looking for a motion to approve the interim. I believe we need the word interim on here, though.
Yep. Perfect.
Correct?
Yep.
Okay. Can I have a councillor? Oh, now we took it out. Oh, there we go.
Yep.
Thank you. Can I Deputy Mayor Narayan?
So move that council approve the 2026 interim municipal operating budget as presented.
Comments, questions from council? Call for the vote. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Can I have the motion to approve the, it's not interim though.
Yep. No, just municipal. Yep.
Thank you. Can I have Councillor Sambo?
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that Council approve the 2026 municipal capital budget as presented.
Comments, questions from council? Call for the vote. And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Now that the two are approved, I'm sure one of the questions that comes up from public is finding out information and things like that. So whether to yourself or to our Director of Strategic Initiatives, can you just speak a little bit to some of the communications plans that exist right now for us as to what we're going to be doing to let people know about the budget, Mr. Edney?
Sure. There's just one more motion that if we could. Do you want to deal with that first or deal with it after?
Deal with it after.
Okay. Maybe I can turn that over to Ms. Dennison to talk about the comms.
Thank you. Ms. Dennison.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. In terms of communications, we have a news release that is scheduled, as well as this PowerPoint that is currently being shared will be available on the website. Following that, we are planning on doing, I would call it a budget at a glance that would have the high-level operating and capital details that will be more easily and readily available for people who don't want to deep dive into the budget. And that should be available early in 2026.
Thank you. And then just to confirm, all the other presentations as well that were presented at the previous meetings are already on our website as part of the minutes packages. And I think it was the same one that was carried through each of our December 2nd, December 3rd, December 4th, December 9th, 10th, and today.
Yes.
That is
Yes?
correct.
Awesome. Thank you.
This presentation will end up as part of the package as well.
Great. Thank you. Just for clarity, the reason I want to separate the two is I think that there might be some more questions and or comments with regards to capital budget and or, sorry, utility budget.
Yep.
Is what I'm getting at. So I just wanted to treat them a little bit separately.
We just have one more motion on the municipal side. Just part of the MGA is to make sure you've seen a 5-year financial forecast.
That's the one you
To
meant.
approve that, yes.
Thank
So
you.
I just want you to accept the 10-year capital forecast for information at this point. It's
Okay,
not an
thank you.
approval, just an awareness.
Thank you. Can I have a councillor make the following motion, please? Councillor Randawa.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that the council accept the 2026 to 2035 capital forecast as presented for information.
Comments, questions from council? Can you just speak to how a 10-year plan gets updated and how that works? Because we're accepting this for information. So that means it's not approved. Can you just speak to that just for some clarity, please?
Yeah, so because you're not approving it, you're just accepting it for information. Our intent would be to come back to next year's budget and take this same forecast that you were presented, convert it into 27 to 36, and adjust projects as we need. And this gives you now a reference point to look back and go, hey, a year ago, where were we sitting, and where were we moving? What has changed in that time? Something we can look at and consider, and I know it was done previously in the city of Chestermere, was actually, this is obviously your first term, but what they would typically do in their second year is actually approve a 4-year capital and operating budget, and then go back each year in the fall time and adjust that. So it gave some certainty to the organization, to council, and to our residents of what they might expect over the next 4 years. But that's something we can discuss because they also weren't facing the same amount of growth that we are here too, and the big adjustments we need to make year over year.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think the reason I bring this up is I have seen some confusion in the community where it is sometimes perceived that this is what's approved. And so because that number is in there for 2028, for example, that's approved, and that's exactly what we're doing in 2028. That is not necessarily true. However, those numbers also influence other projects and things that we're working on. But that's why I just want to provide that clarity, because I have certainly seen those comments and heard those comments within our community. Mr.
Yeah,
Lee.
and I think that's a very good point, Mayor Dean. That, let's pick on 2028, is what we right now sitting here today think we might want to do in 2028. And it's making sure that council is aware of that, the community is aware of that, so that we can start to plan and prepare for that. Come 2028, as we know, the world can change significantly, and we may need to readjust what we do in 2028, but this is as best we can know of what we might do 3 years from now.
That's right. Thank you. Okay. Any other comments, questions from council with regards to the motion? Call for the vote. And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. And I believe you have one more presentation.
Now we have one more presentation. All right. Okay, now we need to talk about the utility company budget. So again, two similar motions for the utility company. Approve the operating budget, the capital budget. This will be asking you as the board of directors to make those approvals. One thing I want to point out, and we talked a little bit about this earlier, something that's different from the original request that was brought forward. There's been a number of motions over the years related to the utility company and the intents of the utility company and what the city was going to do with it. There were some motions passed in 2019 to move forward with a hybrid model, which, as far as I can tell from my research, is essentially how we're operating right now. But one of those key motions in there was not to incur any new debt and then to wind up the utility company once that debt was paid off. So at that time, it would have been 20 years out before that's happening. In 2021, the council of the day came in and actually made a motion to dissolve the utility company. We talked about this last year, and we talked about this at the start of this year. of we haven't actually successfully completed that transaction of dissolving the utility company. The challenge that this brings to this year's capital budget for the utility company, and we talked a lot about this at the start of these presentations 3.5 months ago, as you pointed out, Mayor Dean, that's what it feels like. The offsite levy models, we've talked a lot about offsite levy models. Offsite levy models take a look at all the projects we need to do over the next 25 years, and you start collecting money for each of those projects on that 25-year horizon. One of the challenges of it, though, especially in a community growing at our rate, is we need to do these projects this year, next year, the year after, but we've only collected 3 of the 25 years worth of money into those pots. So a good example this year is we would like to do about $17 million worth of storm water work next year. This is to build the stormwater retention pond on the south end of town. It's to build all the pipes, etc., that make it into that project. There's only $10 million in the storm offsite levy account right now. So the assumption in the model is that the offsite levy account takes on $7 million of debt, and then as it gets money in, as development continues to go and developers continue to pay their offsite levy, it pays down that debt. In the current situation, with the current motions in front of us, we can't do that. The company cannot take on more debt at this point. I'm going to come back with a report in 2026, hopefully in January. If not, really early in February, myself and Director Mach will talk about some options for the utility company moving forward and get council to, I guess, make a decision on what do you actually want to do with the utility and how do we want to operate that going forward. So it's an important difference here of I'm not going to ask the board. So there's a difference. Council's going to decide what the company does, but you as the board now need to operate it under the parameters that are currently set in place by council. It's weird when you're the same 2 entities. I can't ask you to approve a budget that we can't finance. So as we go through this, I'll talk a little bit more when we get into each of the individual slides here on the changes we've made. But again, like anything in a capital budget, you can make changes to it at any point. So that would be the hope in January. Come back with a report, lay out the options, council make a decision, and then figure out how to move forward with these offsite levy projects. So operating budget, I don't think anything actually substantially changed. From the original presentation, we're looking at about $27 million in revenue. Again, this is mostly driven by the rapid growth in our community, the number of new utility accounts. We've talked about some adjustments to how the city bills the utility for our services. That's all captured in here in the expense side. Again, so some changes in there, but really these expenses are driven by the increasing number of utility accounts, the growth in the utility company. And as we talked about, there's an inflationary adjustment in here. How it was set up in 2021 with some transition agreements between the city and the utility company, where the city's providing all of the services to the utility company. We employ our solid waste collection drivers, we employ our storm laborers, and then we bill them back to the city. So they've never been adjusted for inflation. The city's cost of all of these items has gone up over the years. That's just now reflected in this year's budget to, as part of my, I think, mandate, bringing Director Mach on was to make sure we're properly running the utility, properly running the city. This is that sort of first step into making sure we get to the right point. Again, we have on the non-operating side, so one of the things we've done historically, we'll take a look and discuss this with council of, is this the best way to go forward? But because the utility cannot take on new debt, if you look in the non-operating items, it's 2 reserve fund / capital projects. That's what we call the utility rate funded capital projects. So these are the new water meters, all those kind of things, the copper life cycle replacement, repairs, all of those kind of things that because the utility can't take on new debt, we have to fund through the utility rates. So that's that $3.4 million there. we're forecasting a small little surplus at this point. I hesitate to use the word surplus because simply similar to what we do with assessment, we're trying to guess right now how much water people are going to use. Are we going to have a rainy season, a dry season? Are more people going to move here? Are they not? So it's prudent to have a little bit of a fund there that, again, if we get to the end of the year, we can talk with the board about what to do with it. It's not like municipal government where you can forecast a surplus or a deficit in the utility company. So there's a small surplus right now, but again, we'll work through this over the next couple of months as we talk about the future of the utility company. Capital budget, similar format, 10-year forecast is about $152 million. Originally, I think we had about $24 million in 2026 that has now been moved into subsequent years. You can see the challenges when you look at funding sources. We had some water projects in here, but we don't actually have enough money in the water offsite levy account to pay for those, so I bumped those into 2027. And on the storm side, we have about $10.7 million in that account right now, but we had $17.5 million of capital, so we've bumped. It's a phased project. We've left in the earlier phases so we can continue to move forward and push the future phases into subsequent years, so that, again, we're not putting the board in a position where you're approving capital expenditures without a mechanism to actually pay for them. So this, again, will be part of the report that we bring to council in January or February to determine the future of the utility company. So quickly looking at the capital budget, it's relatively small. You can see on the offsite levy funded portion of this, we only have 4 projects in here right now at this point. These are all various phases of the stormwater project to bring it to fruition. So we left in sort of the upstream, I guess, stuff and some of the potential land acquisition costs for the future storage cells, but no construction of those storage cells at this point. That's what we'll have to bring back in the new year. The rest of the items on here, thank you to Director Mach for putting some detail in here just to explain what each of these are. Again, using the same $sign that we did on the municipal side, where it says asset management, water infrastructure. These are all of the capital projects that are funded by that $3.4 million that's in the utility operating budget. So this is a little smaller, only 2 pages of these. I apologize, some of these lines I meant to hide, but just in the essence of time, didn't get them hidden. But if there's no number next to it or no $sign next to it, it means it's not planned for in this year. It's in one of the subsequent years. So again, about $14 million of utility capital budget. And that's it for the utility. Any questions on that?
Awesome, thank you. Council, any comments or questions with regards to the utility budget? Seeing none, can I have the motion to, I think you said we had 2 motions, is that correct?
Yep, just 2 motions for the utility.
Thank you. Can I have a councillor make the following motion, please? Councillor Sambo.
Thank you, Your Worship. Your Worship? In this context, I'm not sure. I move that the Board of Directors approve the 2026 operating budget for 1538974 Alberta Limited as presented.
Comments, questions? Call for the vote. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. And can I have the final, the next motion, please? Can I have a councillor make the following motion, please? Councillor Schindler.
I move that the Board of Directors approve the 2026 capital budget for 1538974 Alberta Limited as presented.
Comments, questions from council? Call for the vote. And that's carried unanimously. Thank you.
Woohoo.
Anything else, Mr. Edney?
You know how much I like to talk, Mayor Dean. No, I think, really quickly to summarize and wrap this up, I'd like to thank really everybody involved. 1, council, for your I guess, attention to detail, your dedication to this process. It's a long process. There's a lot of questions that need to be asked. Sometimes the joke in my position is, wouldn't it be great if we just put this in front of council, they said approved and walked away? That'd make life easier, but this job isn't about easy. It's about making those tough decisions, questioning administration, holding us accountable. So appreciate you for doing that in a respectful manner throughout this process. Really want to thank my staff, executive team, managers, staff. This has been a lot of clear your schedules and be prepared. It's been a bit of a rushed process this year, so I really want to thank them for the efforts they've put into this and for being available. I think we've presented something that I'm happy to stand behind. I think it's been well thought out. I think everything we have in there is a need for this community and will serve this community well over the next year. So I just want to say thank you both to council and to administration for all the work that went into this.
Great, thank you. I echo all of those comments. Thank you to council, thank you to administration for the incredible amount of work that has been put in. This is our last meeting, hopefully, barring, emergencies. But this is our last meeting here before the holiday break. And so we will be back in January. With our first regular council meeting, I believe on January the 13th is our first regular meeting of council in January. And so with that, I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a happy holiday season. And I hope people are able to enjoy their time, however that looks within their own traditions and their own families and their own ways, that they're able to take some time over the upcoming holiday season. So with that, I believe we're at a motion to adjourn. Councillor Randella.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just need to add the comment. Thank you, Mr. Edney, for presenting really nice budget, and thank you everyone on the city staff, manager, directors. I really appreciate. Thank you. Anytime we ask as a councillor, we need to look at this and this, you all will provide with the timing. And I know you work very hard. We have the pressure as well, but you actually made us proud and made every staff member is proud, and we are proud of you as well. Thank you. And now I will move. I thank you, Your Worship. This is 2026 last meeting for this council, and then we are coming back in January 13, 2026. So I move that the council adjourn the special meeting of council at 4:17 p.m.
Comments, questions? Call for the vote. And that's carried unanimously. Thank you.